Compared to other Disney TVA shows, Gravity Falls has had an abnormally large number of books published for it over the years. I mean, you can literally rank them all out based on their level of importance to the overall show. At the top, we have the so-called Holy Trinity of books which were written by series creator Alex Hirsch that directly contribute to the lore. Those being Journal 3, Lost Legends, and the Book of Bill respectively. We can also technically say that the art book is going to be part of this trinity, even though it's not going to directly be full of canon stories and instead, well, is an art book. Below those, we then have the books that were published by members of the crew that, while not as important to canon or not canon at all in fact, are still pretty fun to read. Those being Dipper and Mabel's Guidebook, Curse of the Time Pirate's Treasure, which is my personal favorite, and then the coloring book. Then, even below those, we have books that retell episodes that were made by Disney that are also part of the GF book fleet. Point of the matter is, all of these books exist and are generally either really well received by fans, or not really all that important enough to warrant much attention but are still pretty liked. That is, all except for one. Gravity Falls, Tales of the Strange and Unexplained. Now at first glance, if you're a casual fan, you might not really even understand why that is. I mean, it just looks like a regular GF book. But this book, as it turns out, has a very tumultuous relationship with Gravity Falls fans, to the point that this book is pretty much actively despised by some of them. Ask a fan in the know and they'll have mixed opinions to a burning hatred for this book. But then, why is that the case? What is it about this book that makes it so controversial among fans? In this video, we're going to take a look back on all the drama surrounding this book, what made fans hate it so much, and see if now, over 5 years on from its release at the time of making this video, if that hate is still warranted. Plus, we'll take a look at why, despite this book being so hated by fans, it holds a 4.8 star rating on Amazon. Because outside of the fandom, this book has a very different reason for existing, and one that explains that positive perception of it over the fandom's negative view. But first of all, what even got us to this point? Well, like most sources of all the terrible things to happen this decade, our story begins in the year 2020. On April 7th that year, longtime fan and owner of the Mystery Shack store, The Mystery of GF, tweeted about an upcoming Gravity Falls book in 2021, and with it, our first look of Tales of the Strange and Unexplained. Now, for those of you not in the know, The Mystery of GF is generally regarded as a pretty reliable source for all info about GF, so him revealing this was enough to tell us that this was a real book. And the fan reaction was honestly kinda mixed. This was 2020 after all, and ignoring the major global event occurring at the time, this was a period of downtime in the GF fandom. Many people were focusing on other shows, and Disney Plus's launch a few months earlier at the time was still a ways away from getting GF to the level of popularity it's at today. This was also almost 2 years on from Lost Legends' release, so while fans were hyped to be getting a new book for the show at last, there wasn't much to write home about just yet. But I mean, at least Alex Hirsch was able to take some time off of his Netflix show to work on this, right? Yeah, this is where the problems began. Just minutes after this tweet was made, Alex replied to it simply stating, "What the fuck is this?" This already wasn't a good sign, and this reply after, his first one in a bit given he was on a social media break at the time, solidified it. Briefly returning to Twitter to confirm that I have nothing to do with this and have never heard of it. Legally, Disney can do whatever they want, but creatively, I would be very disheartened to learn that non-canon books were being written without my participation or consent. This sent alarm bells ringing within the fandom. DEFCON 1 was reached. Disney had done the unthinkable. They were making Gravity Falls content without Alex Hirsch and trying to expand the story behind his back. Now again, as Alex himself had said, this is something they are allowed to do. Disney owns the rights to Gravity Falls after all, not Alex. So they can do whatever they want with it, including bringing it back without him. Heck, there have been GF books made without Alex Hirsch like the aforementioned crew published books or even the episode recap books. However, those books were still either made with Alex's knowledge, had small contributions from him like editing and approval, and also were not affecting the lore in a major way, or at all to be of concern in fact, and even then he probably still knew about them. Until this point, Disney had not gone behind his back this greatly. But combine this news from Alex, and the fact that he couldn't legally be involved in new GF content due to his Netflix deal, which as we all know worked out brilliantly, and it seemed to be painting a picture of Disney jumping the shark at last with Gravity Falls. With that, fans began to boycott the book. Everyone was posting and letting others know not to buy the Bedtime Stories book. Do not support this unsanctioned by Alex Hirsch cash grab from Mickey Mouse. If the creator of Gravity Falls hated it, so must we. Now of course, curiosity still gets the better of all of us, myself included. So in 2021 when this came out, I did buy a copy of it mainly to dunk on it and make a review about how bad it was. I think it was also planned to be one of my first commentary videos too, which really shows how long I've been working on this video here. However, as the book came out, the next big thing that fans came to hate about it was revealed. And this time, it was inside the book. A little while after the release, fans noticed something hilariously bad. On this page here, there's a screenshot image from the episode Sock Opera, and right there on it is an Apple QuickTime player bar. Someone, while gathering screenshots for this book, took one with the bar still visible. Then somehow, it was missed through all of the editing and quality control checks to then end up being in this legit book published by one of the biggest media companies the world has ever seen. The Walt Disney Company, folks. That said, as of 2025, new publishings of the book have fixed this. It only just took them 4 years and another Gravity Falls book release to remember that. Though hilariously, their way of fixing it was not taking a new screenshot, but just widening and zooming in on the original image until the bar was not visible. While it has been now fixed, the legacy does live on. And this combined with the book's already negative perception in the fandom really aided in making it the laughingstock of GF books. Everything about this was shaping up to be awful. But then, in May of 2021, Alex Hirsch revealed a new piece of info that further got people hating this book. Now, it should be stated, everything I'm going to say from here now is pretty much outdated information for various obvious reasons once you hear it. But I will still explain this point so you get an idea of how we all felt when Alex said this. In May 2021, after Matt Braley had tweeted about his hopes for Amphibia to one day get an art book, which as we all know it did, Alex infamously quote retweeted it by revealing that he had planned an art book for Gravity Falls as well with Dark Horse in 2020, before Disney Channel then canned it. This revelation shocked and angered fans even further. But then after that, Alex then called out the Bedtime Stories book specifically, making fun of the QuickTime bar in it. However, his wording made fans start questioning if by some chance, given the timings matched, Disney had rejected the art book to make this instead? Suddenly, fans had yet another reason to hate this book. It was a Nickelodeon rejecting a cartoon that ends up being a big hit over a Cartoon Network level stupid decision from what it sounded like. This was the final straw. This book was made without Alex Hirsch's involvement, and telling new stuff without him, had a garbage quality control on it which allowed a QuickTime player bar to be on one of the images, and now it was possibly the reason that the Gravity Falls art book had been scrapped. Only that last part isn't really entirely true, because this is an instance where I will give the Bedtime Stories book some slack. Alex later clarified that this all happened ages ago, and that the two were probably not connected, to be honest. But once you say something like that, it's hard to really close the lid again. So even now, fans still blame this book for the art book scrapping. Of course, as I said earlier, all of this is now outdated info, given both Gravity Falls and Amphibia have gotten art books. But back in 2021, this was not helping the bedtime book's cause. But with that said, Those are the three, well, two or maybe even one now considering the QuickTime bar has been fixed, reasons for fans hating this book. It was made without Alex Hirsch's involvement or knowledge, and the sheer fact that it had a QuickTime bar in it to begin with really indicated how cheaply made and written it was. But here we are now 5 years on, and in many ways, this book has sort of just become a thing that some remember, and others don't really care about. People are still buying it, and there hasn't really been anything more about it that has come out since. So, with hindsight in mind, is Tales of the Strange and Unexplained still worthy of holding the title of worst Gravity Falls book? Or are the reviews of it online being so positive an indication of another thing? The difference in the fandom perception over the mainstream perception? To figure it out, I decided to finally dust off my 2021 copy and revisit it to give you all the final word on if this book is deservingly hated or seriously misunderstood. Now starting off, the first thing you'll notice with Tales of the Strange and Unexplained is that it's massive. In fact, by physical size, it is still for now the largest official Gravity Falls book. You know, unless the art book is bigger, which I suspect it will be. I mean, here it is in comparison with Journal 3. Even though Journal 3 still has more pages in it, this book is larger. Even the Book of Bill is small. The only Gravity Falls book I for now have that is larger than it is the Wayfaring Strangers fanzine. And that technically doesn't count given it's, well, a fan-made book, but if we were to include those, then yeah, this is the biggest Gravity Falls book instead. But anyways, going back to Tales of the Strange, the cover is honestly not that bad looking. You have the title of the book, some pics of the pines, and a lot of stickers. The same is on the back with more images and stickers used along with the synopsis. And it's here where you'll start to notice some odd things. The synopsis is worded very strangely in my opinion. This might be more my own personal belief, but it honestly really doesn't read like something written by someone who's fully passionate about Gravity Falls. I mean, additionally, it just casually mentions here that this here is Waddles. I mean, anyone buying this book would already know that. Additionally, if this cover looks familiar to you, then it should. Because Tales of the Strange in a lot of ways shares many similarities to Dipper's and Mabel's Guide to Mystery and Nonstop Fun from 2014. Heck, some of Mabel's stickers on this cover are the exact same ones used in the guidebook. Like for example, the same heart and star stickers can be found in both books, and the shooting star one on the front cover is the same. Oh, and also more obviously, the fact that both books use the same "this book is property of" box that is seen at the start of the books, and the fact that they both use the same original images of Dipper and Mabel that were made for the guidebook. I think it's just safe to say that Disney just reused the same old assets from the guidebook here to save some money. On one hand, it's kinda cool seeing those original guidebook assets being used again, but it's also a really good indicator of how cheaply made this book was. I mean, remember, that QuickTime player bar happened for a reason. But now, the question that you all are probably waiting for. What exactly is in this book? And does it go against Alex Hirsch's wishes? Is this book creating new lore without him? Was the hate justified in that regard? Well, no, not at all. Yeah, I think this one should be a given, due to the fact that the book is mainly full of images from existing Gravity Falls episodes, and the fact that you've probably never heard of any original stories from this book that fans were mad at. Oh, and also the literal cover, given it states below the title that the book has, quote, bedtime stories from your favorite episodes. Simply put, there's nothing new in here. Going to the start, you'll see that this book is broken down into 11 chapters, all signifying 1 week in the twin summer. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, and it definitely probably violates at least some timeline rules for the show, whatever loose ones we do have. I mean, no wonder the wiki has this book listed as not canon. Anyways, the chapters specifically follow the stories of the following episodes: Tourist Trapped, The Legend of the Gobblewonker, The Inconveniencing, Time Traveler's Pig, Summerween, Dreamscaperers, Gideon Rises, Scarioki, Sock Opera, A Tale of Two Stands, and The Last Mabelcorn. Now already, one problem I notice here is that many fan favorite episodes are just missing, which makes the title already a lie. I mean, for me personally, Double Dipper and Irrational Treasure are two of my top favorite Gravity Falls episodes next to Time Traveler's Pig, and yet they're not there. Similarly, other iconic episodes like Fight Fighters, Carpe Diem, Society of the Blind Eye, and of course, Not What He Seems, aren't in here too. It's a very strange episode choice as a result. But what's even stranger is how the stories themselves are written. Now, the premise of each chapter is that Dipper and Mabel summarize their story in their respective episode. It's written out in a storybook-type format that is short and easy to read. It then ends with a condensed summary by Grunkle Stan about what he was up to during the episode, hence why the book is also called the Grunkle Stan Edition. This is also probably why these specific episodes were chosen, as they're the ones with a prominent B-plot involving Stan. So you can write the main story based on the A-plot, and then the Stan bit via his B-plot. Even so, I'm still not sure why they would skip out on some amazing episodes with a Stan B-plot that would have been fun to read, like again, Irrational Treasure, but also episodes like Little Dipper, Boss Mabel, The Deep End, Seuss and the Real Girl, The Love God, and of course again as well, Not What He Seems. Now, the reason I said that these stories are written strangely is that they really do read in an odd way. Maybe it's just because it's supposed to be a bedtime stories book that summarizes events, but the way Dipper and Mabel talk in it is just weird. It doesn't really have that Dipper and Mabel type feel to it, if that makes any sense at all. The dialogue honestly reads like someone was just trying to mimic what the twins probably speak like, or some intern at Disney Books who was just hired to write this and use whatever they could find on the wiki to do it. I'd even go as far to say that if this book came out today, it might be possible that people would accuse it of using AI. I mean, obviously it did not, given this was published back in 2021, but I wouldn't be surprised if people assumed that if it came out now, with how bland and corporate feeling some of the writing is. Plus, there's just some commonly repeated dialogue types where Dipper and Mabel just state the same thing in obvious terms. I mean, for example, here where Mabel is talking about how blindfolds are great and how you can't see, she then reiterates it by saying that's because you can't. I mean, that doesn't sound like something Mabel would say or be an actual dialogue type. And that happens often in the book where Mabel is just stating the obvious. But then maybe I'm just being a bit too harsh on this book again. I mean, it is after all a bedtime stories book that is meant to be read before bed or to your kids if you're a parent. I will give the book some positives though, in that some dialogue is actually kind of funny, like this bit here in the Time Traveler's Pig chapter. But something I do find rather unusual is some inaccuracies that this book has to actual GF fact. They're very small and probably not important to 99% of fans, but if you're looking at this book in a tooth-and-nail type of way as I am, you'll begin to notice it. For example, in the Tourist Trap chapter, Mabel refers to the jackalope by its actual name, even though in Not What He Seems, she still has no idea what it is.
Wait, the antelope!
Don't you mean jackalope?
That can't be right.
In fairness, you could say that this book was written afterwards and that she learned it since, but then it still doesn't sound like something Mabel would do given, well, she's Mabel. And on top of that, in the Time Traveler's Pig chapter, Dipper says that Waddles making Robbie's jeans shrink meant that Wendy was probably not going to go out with him anymore, even though they were literally together in the next episode and going together to the Summerween party, which is the next chapter in this book, mind you. Then in the Dreamscapers chapter, they have Bill saying this line that he said when he first met the twins in Seuss on this image from later in the episode, even though the page before has the correct image where he did say that line.
Yeah, look out for the triangle guy!
Then in the Scarioki chapter, they still refer to McGucket as the old guy from the Gobblewonker, and also Mabel mentions him, which she never actually did in the same scene from the episode.
Hey boys, looking good! Gorney, you clean up nice. Mr. Poolcheck, move those crazy legs!
Though in true GF fashion, they did forget to add an arrow to Wendy in this page from the Mabelcorn chapter, so all is not forgotten. Poor Wendy. Now in truth, that all could just be argued to be nitpicky, but it also really just adds to the feeling that this book was not written as a proper GF book, but just to make a new book for the show for the sake of making money and calling it a day. However, that said, one thing I did find interesting in all of this is that at the start of the book, Mabel mentions that Grunkle Stan is her dad's uncle. And that's significant because we still don't canonically know which parent's side Stan is from. The book suggests it's their dad, which in some ways could be possible and kind of makes some sense. But again, it's not something we have ever had the show canonically confirm as far as I can remember. Which kind of then makes it kind of funny that this entire thing was confirmed in this book of all books and the one that's also not canon. But I mean, I kind of take it as canon because it just makes sense, and pretty much every fan sort of accepts it as well. So with all that said, how do I feel about Tales of the Strange and the Unexplained? Well, with retrospect and hindsight in mind, I do agree that the fandom's hatred of it based solely on the belief that it was gonna tell new stories without Alex Hirsch was in the end pretty wrong, as that did not obviously happen. However, I do still think that fans can be forgiven for thinking that at the time, given we really didn't know anything else about the book just yet, and also because it's Disney and they don't obviously have the best track record. However, I think it's also a case of Alex Hirsch himself probably without knowing anything either, saying something that led to fans being angry towards this book in a way that it really didn't need or didn't really deserve. If we knew at the time that this was just going to be a retelling of episodes and nothing more, and maybe even Alex Hirsch himself knew that and stated so as such, I really doubt that there would have been as many fans pissed at this book, and at that point then they really wouldn't even have cared about it, or had been maybe a bit interested in seeing what it would have been like at least. Instead, it's gained this infamous reputation in the fandom as this book that Alex didn't know about, and that it's everything we didn't want GF to become. Which, that of course is not what this book is. It was just an innocent bedtime stories book. However, with that fear debunked, when looking at this book as just a retelling of episodes and as its own thing, then I'm sorry, but it's just not really that good of a book, and not worthy enough to redeem itself in my opinion. Visually, it is lovely, but the dialogue just doesn't feel right to me. It also just skips out on many good episodes I'd have preferred over the ones that they did include in it, and overall, it just feels like a cheap cash grab from Disney to profit off of Gravity Falls' name at a time when it was on a rise in popularity due to Disney Plus's launch.
These, episode recaps are supposed to feel like they're being told by Dipper and Mabel, but it's just missing something. Honestly, it reads a little more like my Gravity Falls recap. I was just surprised at how little of a Gravity Falls vibe I was getting while reading the actual plot to Gravity Falls, sometimes word for word.
I mean, that's not surprising given it's Disney, but GF books are usually great and worth buying, while this doesn't really even feel like that. It just doesn't feel the same. But as I said at the start of this video, despite my personal thoughts on it and that of the fandom, Tales of the Strange and the Unexplained has a really high rating of 4.8 stars on Amazon. So what exactly is making people love this book so much despite the fandom dislike for it? Well, let's take a look at the reviews for a second. As you can see, many of the reviews are from parents who bought this book for their kids. And the common take is that they love it, given they're all big fans of Gravity Falls. I think in a way, this really should strike home a thing that is often forgotten about within fandom discussion and lore. Gravity Falls may be a show that we all love and deep dive into discussing on the regular, but at the end of the day, it is still a cartoon. A cartoon on Disney that has a C8 rating here in Canada, or TVY7 if you're American. Gravity Falls is, while a show with amazing lore, mystery, and characters, at its core, a kid's cartoon as far as Disney cares. And this book is designed for that audience, not us.
For kids, book here is perfectly fine, nothing to complain about. It just doesn't match up to Journal 3 or The Lost Legends, and as an adult, it's kinda boring.
It's not made for someone like you or me that explores the depths of fandom and knows about headcanons and AUs or theories and deep dives into trivia that only a couple of fandom members would know about. It's made for the larger majority of fans. The casual viewer who watches it and enjoys the main media of the series without ever stepping foot in the fandom or is too young to do so. It's not the Book of Bill, which was made for the fan who grew up with the show, is in the fandom, and is now old enough to read mature stories. It's made for kids who watch it with their parents after school and maybe one day see the book in a store and get it as a gift or something that their parents then read to them before bed on a school night or something, and that they maybe read themselves in a class for like a daily reading book log or something. That is who this book is for. I think when you're in a fandom, judging a book like this can be hard, as obviously to us, it just feels kind of childish and not like a book you'd want to read. I mean, why read a boring recap of the episodes when you can just watch them? We don't often consider the larger audience that is out there who isn't in the fandom for whom this book is perfect for. And as those kids grow up, and if they one day want to join the fandom, they'll eventually find their own way into this world of lore and AUs that help keep that aspect of the fandom alive. Tales of the Strange is therefore an entry point for a new potential fan. Kinda like how watching Phineas and Ferb as a kid was what got me hooked onto cartoons and eventually would lead me to Gravity Falls and fandoms from watching the promos and stuff that would air in between episodes. This book will probably be for someone else their entry point. For that reason, it's a pretty important book, despite what we in the fandom think about it. A book that, while not at the end of the day as bad as we feared it would be, is still not honestly that great, but also still an important book nonetheless, in giving the youngest Gravity Falls fans out there their first experience with a book for the show. A book that eventually, once they grow up, might lead them to become the next generation of Gravity Falls fans that will continue to help keep the legacy and memory of this show and fandom alive for a long time to come. And in that sense, this book is honestly, for all of its flaws, pretty alright. I've been that Gia fan, and thank you for watching. Okay, but in all seriousness, even though it's been fixed now, we're still gonna laugh about that QuickTime player bar. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's still so hilarious to me how that even happened. God damn it, Disney.